took those big knives and cut the tires on the police cruisers.
First, the cops came for him.
I almost felt like I was outside of my body and I was watching myself.
Then he came for the cops.
I fired 4 shots through the house. I just kind of laughed.
See who got the last laugh.
We would kid with some of the other inmates and say we're here on the family plan.
Welcome to the 700 Club. The Republican presidential candidates continued their orgy of self-destruction yesterday in that so-called debate, and I wish they would stop. They ought to turn their attention to the man who's going to be running against them in the general election, but they don't seem to know it. And I've got a surprise for you today.
Okay,
I'm going to show you how to lower your cholesterol, fight colon cancer, look after the rest of your cells, and be healthy and happy and blooming.
Oh, you are you? And how are you going to do this?
This is my age-defying over 80 cereal.
Okay. So do I have to wait till I'm 80 to eat it?
No, you can eat it now, and then you'll live to be 100.
There you go.
Promise.
All right.
All right.
Well, Pat was talking about the wonderful debate last night. Well, front runners Mitt Romney and Herman Cain actually took the most heat, but everyone got into the act before the night was over. CBN's David Brody brings us the highlights.
Herman Cain's rise in the polls puts him in the middle of a Wild West shootout. Unfortunately for him, his 999 tax plan was the target. Its goal? Replace the current tax code with a 9% personal tax, 9% corporate tax, and a new 9% national sales tax. His critics say taxes will go up for some middle-class Americans.
Anytime you give the Congress a brand new tax, it doesn't go away.
The worst part about it is it's regressive. A lot of people aren't paying any taxes, and I like that. I don't think that we should even things up by raising taxes.
Cain says his plan would actually lower taxes for most Americans.
None of my distinguished colleagues who have attacked me up here tonight understand the plan.
The West has been hit extremely hard in this economy. Nevada leads all 50 states in home foreclosures. Just minutes from the debate site, we saw foreclosure signs at house after empty house.
It really is just frustration. You know, you've got to range from frustration to desperation, really.
The candidates tried to address that frustration.
When you talk about foreclosures, you're talking about women who are at the end of their rope because they're losing their nest for their children and for their family.
Faith came up too.
Is it acceptable to let the issue of a candidate's faith shape the debate?
That question resulted from remarks made by Dallas pastor and Perry supporter Robert Jeffress, who said Mitt Romney is not a Christian and Mormonism is a cult.
That individual expressed an opinion. I didn't agree with it, Mitt, and I said so.
With regards to the disparaging comments about my faith, I've heard worse, so I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
The debate's most animated moments began when Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum took on Romney's government health care plan that he put in place as governor of Massachusetts.
You just don't have credibility, Mitt, when it comes to repealing Obamacare. Your plan was the basis for Obamacare.
In the last campaign, I was asked, is this something that you would have the whole nation do? And I said no.
There's a lot of big government behind Romney Care, not as much as Obamacare, but a heck of a lot more than your campaign is admitting.
Then Rick Perry took his turn against Romney.
You hired illegals in your home, and you knew about it for a year.
I don't think I've ever hired an illegal in my life. I'm looking forward to finding your facts on that because that just doesn't...
I'll tell you what the facts are.
Rick, again...
You had them...
Rick, I'm speaking. You have a problem with allowing someone to finish speaking. And I'd suggest that if you want to become president of the United States, you got to let both people speak. So first, let me speak.
And he did speak about Perry's job creation record in Texas.
40%, almost half the jobs created in Texas were created for illegal aliens, illegal immigrants.
That is an absolute falsehood on its face, Mitt.
All this arguing eventually led to a call for reason.
Maximizing bickering is probably not the road to the White House.
And after the debate, we found Wayne Newton, the Las Vegas legend, who summed it all up.
The show was pretty entertaining.
This is now the 8th debate between these Republican candidates since the whole primary process has started, and there still are a few more debates to come. What we have learned is that these debates do matter and that voters are paying attention. Just ask Rick Perry, who has fallen in the polls since these debates started. And now comes Herman Cain and whether or not he can rise and shine in primetime. David Brody, CBN News in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Anybody who wants to see a new face in the White House had better tell those worthy debaters to get off it. This is outrageous what they're doing. When I ran for president, we had maybe 4 key debates, and that was it. And even at that, we didn't cut each other up because we lived on the 11th commandment put down by former President Ronald Reagan, who says, "Thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Republican." And as a result, the candidate that came out of that business won. This is counterproductive. I mean, enough of this. Enough of this. And I don't know if anybody's listening, but I sure hope somebody is, because they're going to kill themselves off, and then who's going to pick up the pieces? The president.
Absolutely, Pat. You know, just as a normal viewer watching that, I have to tell you, it was so unattractive to watch grown men back and forth that I thought, you know, I'm not even hearing what you're saying, and why would I even vote for you? Because if you can't handle a little debate like that, then you're not a grown enough man to handle the presidency. Well,
the Bible,
I know it's kind of harsh, but it's
you know,
true.
God was speaking to Jeremiah. Said, if you can't run with men, how do you think you're going to compete with horses? And I think that's okay. Yeah. Well, you can always get the latest on the presidential race by checking out the Brody File on CBNnews.com. Lee Webb, our wonderful anchor, has the rest of our top stories. Lee.
Pat, turning overseas, Moody's Investors Service has downgraded Spain's credit rating. Spain is the 12th largest economy in the world, and the move comes as European leaders are trying to make progress on the region's debt crisis. That crisis could threaten the financial system of the continent and spread to other parts of the world. Moody's has also warned France might get its credit rating reviewed as well. Pat?
Well, Moody did a job on the United States credit rating, and it didn't seem to make any difference. People still flocked in to buy treasuries. But nevertheless, this is a serious problem, ladies and gentlemen. It's like a festering sore. It's getting worse and worse and worse, and it started with Greece. They've got to deal with Greece, and in my opinion, let Greece default. Let them break free from the euro bloc and go with the drachma and get on with life. They've got to do that. But by dilly-dallying in this endless series of negotiations, they're destroying themselves. And then people are wondering, well, how much of the French or how much of the Germans are going to have to pony up to bail out Greece, and then how much for Spain, then how much for Italy, and how much for Portugal? It's a shame, because it's going to suck us all down. It's like vortex, whirlpool. Lee?
Pat, Palestinians took to the streets to celebrate the release of nearly 1,000 prisoners in exchange for Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit. The crowd began urging militants to seize more soldiers for future exchanges. Hamas organized this celebration. Many of the released prisoners were convicted of some of Israel's worst terrorist attacks. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the freed Palestinians, though, they will be punished if they return to violence. Israeli Ambassador Michael Oren tells CBN News the Israeli people feel both the joy and the agony of the situation.
There's no shortage of terrorists in the Middle East. And yes, 1,000 were released today, but we have thousands who remain behind bars, and we'll continue our struggle against them. They know the price. And by the way, the terrorists never ceased trying to kidnap Israeli soldiers. They succeeded in the case of Gilad Shalit, but they haven't succeeded since then. So we're very vigilant, and we're fighting terror all the time. And nobody should ever somehow derive a lesson from this that Israel's weaker. On the contrary, we're stronger because of this. And we will go on fighting terror. We celebrate life. They're celebrating the release of people who have killed innocent civilians. They're celebrating death.
And you can see the entire interview with Ambassador Oren by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat, we should point out that Ambassador Oren has 2 sons serving in the Israeli army.
Well, his book about the Six-Day War was just a masterpiece. He's a terrific journalist and author, and he's a very credible ambassador. Lee, what I said yesterday, I say again, the Israelis may have got the best of it. It costs a lot of money to keep somebody in prison. And so you turn these cutthroats loose on the population. The Hamas has got to feed them and clothe them and house them and look after them. And, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. Lee?
President Obama says it was a difficult decision to send 100 Special Forces troops to Central Africa. Those troops are helping in the battle against the Lord's Resistance Army. The president tells ABC News that the LRA has vicious killers who terrorize villages. The president says there has been strong support for the move across the political spectrum. Some people believe the Lord's Resistance Army is a Christian organization. But CBN's international correspondent Gary Lane says that's not true.
Has nothing to do with Christianity. It's a cult. And he has a very twisted sense of the Bible and the Ten Commandments and so forth. But he is not a good guy. He's been wreaking havoc on this area for about 20 years now.
The White House and human rights groups have charged the LRA with kidnapping children and forcing them to become soldiers or sex slaves. A major advancement in the fight against malaria. Researchers say a new vaccine can cut a child's risk of getting the disease in half. The experimental drug is in the final stages of testing in Africa. Developers say early results show the vaccine to be 50% effective in young children. Malaria kills about 1 million people a year, and most of those are children living in Africa. Developers call the new findings a milestone, but say the vaccine will not be available for at least 3 years. They say further testing is needed. Convenience stores throughout Nashville are working to make their communities healthier. A program called the Healthy Corner Store Initiative transforms stores into neighborhood markets. The Tennessean newspaper reports stores are bringing in fresh fruit and vegetables and educating shoppers on the importance of healthy eating. The program is part of a campaign to fight obesity in the Nashville area. Stores in lower income neighborhoods are targeted. Many of those areas do not have a full-size supermarket. 19 stores are participating. Pat?
Okay, talking about healthy, I want to do it now because this is the time, and my lovely co-hostess has been so eager to find out what I do to keep myself going to 100.
Absolutely. So share, Pat, share.
All right. Do you want something, a miracle that would stop or retard colon cancer, that would clear your arteries of cholesterol, that would take care of your cells to fight cancer, to make you bright and alert and healthy and happy?
Absolutely.
Well, you can have it with my age-defying over 80 diet. Now, I show you. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
School me.
I have here a bowl.
Yeah.
This is a cereal bowl.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to cook. Cooking is the pits, so why cook? This is the best. See what that's called?
Oat bran.
Oat bran. Magnificent.
I'm sure oat bran is delish.
All right,
I don't necessarily have that in my cabinet, though.
Wait, you see, you're missing it. It's got fiber, so you put all that stuff in there.
Okay. Is this what you eat every morning?
It's what I just had today.
Okay.
All right, see a little oatmeal?
Yeah, but aren't you supposed to oat bran, but aren't you supposed to cook that?
I'm not supposed to do it.
All right. Do your thing, brother. Do your thing.
You can cook it if you want to.
Okay.
All right. Now, give me that box over there. This is oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
This is old-fashioned oatmeal.
Now, I do eat that.
You put some more of that in there.
All right.
Just a little bit. Okay. Now, you can cook that, too.
Okay, but you choose not to.
All right. Now.
Because you're a rebel.
This stuff came out of the, what do they call it, the Price Club? What is it? Is it the Price Club?
I don't know, like Sam's Club, one of those big. Well, you can go anywhere and get them.
Costco.
Costco.
All right. These are extremely good for you. What are they?
They're walnuts.
That's right. So I'll take about 7.
And nuts are great because they're great in what, omega? Omega-3s, right?
Omega-3 plus all kinds of other good things. So I'll put some of them in there.
Gotcha.
All right. Now.
I love walnuts with chocolate. Do you like walnuts with chocolate?
Forget the chocolate. This is healthy.
I'm just
Gordon
saying.
is not doing this. This is me. This is the old man who's going to live to be 100.
Okay, and pecans.
Pecans. This has all kinds of nutrients. I'm going to take 6 or 7 of those.
Speaking of pecans, you know what I love? Pecan pie.
Stop it!
All right, I'm sorry.
All right, please. Enough. All right, I just put the pecans in. Now these are up. Well, that's all right. Don't worry about it.
I tried.
These are
almonds.
delicious.
Now, I do eat almonds.
Well, aren't you some? All right, let's get about 7 or 8 more almonds in there.
Seriously, almonds with dark chocolate? Dark chocolate's good.
That's
good. That's good. That's good.
Now, this is Costco, and these things are incredible. See this? Nature's 3 berries. You see all those good things?
Oh, yeah.
Blueberries, black raspberries, red raspberries. Yum. So rather than open that big bag, I've got some of them right here.
I love that.
Strawberries.
Now, I do know that. Great for antioxidants.
You finally got one right. They are.
I was just messing with you, Pat, because you know what? Sometimes it's fun to mess with you.
All right, I know it is. You mess with me all the time. All right, now.
But I do like that.
Now, to make it happy for somebody like you, you can put stevia in here if you want to. Or
I like your choice better.
You can get pure Vermont maple syrup.
Yum-y.
So I put that on there, too.
This is kind of looking pretty good.
Okay, here. This thing open. You ready?
Yes.
Pour some of that stuff on there. Yum, yum, yum.
Yum, yum, yum.
You say, do you measure it? No, I just Google it in. Google it.
Google it in.
Google it in. All right. There's my Google.
I like that.
Now, this is skim milk.
Okay.
Skim milk. Yummy, yummy.
You got it.
Put the skim milk on there. All right. That's it. Give me a spoon.
Here's your spoon.
Now, this will keep you so full you won't want to eat anything the rest of the day.
Well, listen, you've got Perfect Health. You've got the bran, which is great in fiber.
That's right.
The oatmeal, which is also great in fiber and also helps you lower your cholesterol.
All right.
You've got the berries, which is one of the best things for antioxidants you can get. You've got your omega-3s and other great fat
other
in the nuts.
things in nuts and lots of fiber.
Exactly. And, of course, the maple syrup. What's the good thing about the maple syrup?
It makes it taste good.
All right.
All right, colon cancer, clearing out cholesterol, and the antioxidants keep your whole cells from doing. All right.
Let's taste it.
You taste it.
You taste it too.
I already had a whole bunch of it for breakfast this morning.
All
right. Take enough
to.
Well,
I got to read the copy in 5 seconds.
No, that's all right. It's not going to bunk up you.
That, seriously?
I can't believe it. I have just converted a heathen, to the righteous way. Folks, you live to be 100. That's my living to 100 breakfast, and I have that every morning.
That's very yummy. You could put that in a box and market that, man.
Well, it's kind of slopped out over here.
It's slopped out, but...
Hey, by the way, you keep these things in the refrigerator. The berries are frozen. You stay in the freezer. The nuts you keep in the refrigerator, as do the sugar, and I mean the syrup. Isn't that delicious?
Seriously, it's very yummy.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I have struck a blow for liberty. I have to do something. I have a son who wants to fill you up with cholesterol and bad things. I'm trying to counter what happens in the other part of this program. So
it's all about the health. So this is.
It's all about how I'm almost 82 and on the way to 100.
Exactly. High five me.
High five.
Good
all right,
job.
let's get on with the show.
Very good.
All right.
If I can get the nuts out of my teeth, I'm going to tell you about who's coming up next. He was elected to Congress to fight for his local district. Now, he's traveling the world fighting for human rights. Congressman Frank Wolf explains why he's a prisoner of conscience. Up next on the 700 Club.
Do you have money to burn? If not, you need to know that the paper dollars you're invested your life savings in are being consumed right now in a growing blaze of inflation and declining value. Economists know why the dollar is burning and at risk of crashing. It's because politicians and central bankers keep printing them. And this makes the dollars you've worked so hard for worth less and less. The politicians and bankers hated the gold standard because it forced them to be honest. That's why the US dollar keeps losing value and could soon crash. The good news is that you can create your own personal gold standard and keep your savings protected when the dollar crashes. Call or visit online now. Find out more about the best performing assets of the 21st century from the best company in the country, Swiss America.
Tomorrow.
She had IVs in her head. She had IVs in her arms.
A newborn is given 1 hour to live.
The body is clinically considered dead.
as her mom takes a turn for the worse.
I couldn't even get up and move.
How this family got a double miracle.
I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing what you're doing.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
I just read a book that'll just absolutely blow your mind. It's written by a congressman from Virginia. He's actually from up in Philadelphia initially, I think, in New Jersey. But anyhow, it's called Prisoner of Conscience. Frank Wolf, one of the great fighters for freedom around the world. And here at home, most Americans just take your religious freedom for granted. But in some parts of the world, human rights abuses and religious persecution are all too common. John Jessup introduces us to that one extraordinary member of Congress who's been fighting for decades to change what's happening.
From an orphanage in Afghanistan to refugee camps in Sudan, Virginia Congressman Frank Wolf has traveled the world fighting for human rights. Wolf says his dream of serving in Congress goes back to childhood. He ran on local transportation issues, but soon discovered his real cause was global. After witnessing Ethiopia's famine in the mid-'80s and seeing results of Ceausescu's repressive Romanian regime, Wolf became a leading voice on human rights. He credits a strong religious conviction for helping him to speak against wrong. His work gained respect and partnership from across the political aisle, as well as influencing policy from the Reagan administration to the Clinton White House. In his new book, Prisoner of Conscience, Wolf retraces his travels to some of the most dangerous places in the world, sharing how he was moved by his Christian faith and challenged to act using his influence in the United States Congress. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Well, a rare man in Congress, Frank Wolf. He's joining us now from Washington. Frank, so good to have you with us. It's a terrific book.
Well, thank you, Pat. Thank you. I want to get some of that cereal, too, Pat.
Well, I want you to live to be 100. We need you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, listen, you've been in these hot spots. You were over in Romania during the height of Ceausescu, and was your life in jeopardy at the time?
No, it never was. Actually, one of your camera crews was there and filmed a lot of that. And but no, Pat, I never felt. I was with Congressman Tony Hall and Congressman Chris Smith, and I think we were fine.
Well, where's the worst problem right now? You've had some things to say about slave labor in China. Is it still as bad as you portrayed it?
I think there are three places. One is Sudan, just above the southern Sudanese border up in Kidigli. They're now killing Africans. They're going door to door. There have been ethnic cleansing. They're all Christians, and it's done by the Bashir government out of Khartoum. I think that may be the worst, and also in Darfur. Secondly, we see in Egypt the Coptic Christians are having a very tough time, and we've given the Egyptian government over $50 billion, and yet the Copts live in fear. And I think the third place, in China today, Catholic bishops are under house arrest. Protestant pastors are being rounded up. They plundered Tibet. And at the same time, they're spying on us, taking all of our secrets, economic secrets, and yet we are borrowing so much money. I think the three top would be Sudan, Egypt, and also China.
Why can't we do some of those? Janjaweed there in Darfur were just going in and just wreaking havoc with those poor people, destroying their livelihood, burning their houses, and killing them. Why can't we stop that?
The UN has been very weak. Kofi Annan has been very weak. The current head of the UN has been very weak. We say never again with regard to the Holocaust, and yet the genocide is taking place today in Darfur at a lower grade, because they've destroyed most of the villages. But you have Antonov bombers that bomb, and you have Soviet-Hind helicopters and the Janjaweed that you mentioned. But for some reason, the world just doesn't focus on it. Here you have Bashir, indicted war criminal, is able to travel around the world. He went to China. This past week, he went to Malawi. Yet when we were trying to get Milosevic and Radic and Kadar, we went after them. But yet for some reason, maybe it's because it's taking place in Africa, the world just doesn't seem to focus or to care.
What do you think? The president just sent in troops into Uganda. That Coney and that Lord's Resistance Army has been wreaking havoc for, well, it's 20 years or so. Was that a smart move on the president's part?
Well, your report was very good. One, I think the president should have notified the Congress. I think, personally, the Joint Chiefs should have called the leadership, House and Senate, and Armed Services Committee to tell them what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. they're not going to be in combat. But having said that, the notification, I think to put some people in to help the Ugandan army, to help the Southern Sudanese army, and also to help the people in the Congo, because as your report had, the child soldiers, they're cutting off nose, ears. Some of the stories are just atrocities going on, and they're threatening the Uganda government, they're threatening the Southern Sudanese government. So I think what the president did was appropriate as advisories, but not to be actual in combat. But I think he should have first notified the leadership in the House and the Senate, and I think he should have really told the American people, this is not combat, this is just to assist the Ugandan military, the Southern Sudanese military, to round up Kony, who is a very bad person. I mean, there's so many child soldiers in that area, it's terrible.
What do we do? You've got the Chinese raping Tibet, and you have human trafficking on a major scale. You've done an inquiry into that. That, to me, is shocking. 1 million or more women being trafficked, or children being trafficked every year.
Well, I think the answer, Pat, in some respects, one, I think the church ought to be speaking out on it. But two, when President Reagan was president, you know, Reagan called the Soviet Union the evil empire. He said, tear down the wall. He spoke out on these issues. President Reagan said that the words in the Constitution were a covenant, not only with the people in Philadelphia in 1787, but with the entire world. And Reagan just had that ability to sort of crystallize. President Reagan was the one when we passed a bill to take away MFN. And again, your camera crew was there that first time with this. Reagan just took it away, just like that. He understood freedom. And if you've been watching these presidential debates, and I heard your comment earlier, no questions are coming from the media. What about human rights? What about religious freedom? What about the Coptic Christians who live in fear? What about the fact that Tibet has been plundered? What about the Nobel Prize winner 2010, Xiaobo, is in jail? What about what's taking place in Sudan? And I think we've failed the leadership test at the presidential level, and we just don't have a president like Ronald Reagan. And with the death of Henry Hyde and Tom Lantos, the voices for speaking out have really been silenced to a certain extent. But I would hope that during the presidential campaign, certainly the candidates on my side, the Republican candidates, would advocate, speak out the way that Sam Brownback did, if you recall, when Sam Brownback, now the governor of Kansas, he talked a lot about these issues when he was running for president. And I think the leadership at the top can make a tremendous difference. And lastly, I think the church in the West has to advocate. As you know, there are many passages in the Bible to advocate for the oppressed, Ecclesiastes 4:1, many other passages. But the church, I think, has to begin to speak out much more.
Well, Frank, I appreciate the way you reach across the aisle with Tony Hall, a Democrat, and others, and work together. Prisoner of Conscience. I hope this book does well. Is it available where you can buy it?
It's on Amazon.com, and I'm not sure other places where it's available.
Okay.
But thank you very much. Well, and again, I want to get that cereal recipe. I really do.
Well, our staff will get it for you. I want you to live to be 100. That's the 100-year-old recipe.
Thank you very much.
All right, Frank. Well, Congressman from Virginia, tremendous man. Prisoner of Conscience is available on Amazon, at least, and it's an incredible story of bravery and things that this man has accomplished. It's wonderful. All right.
Fantastic. He's an inspiration. Well, coming up, a drug addict goes on a crime spree right in the parking lot of a police station.
We had these large survival knives and took those big knives and cut the tires on the police cruisers, and we felt like we didn't do a good enough job, so we sliced the tires even on the personal cars that were parked in the parking lot.
So find out where he went up next after the 700 Club continues.
If you're the mother of a child with behavior problems, I'd like to talk to you. My name is Janet Lehman, and I'm a behavioral therapist and a mom. I know what it's like when the child that you love becomes a defiant, out-of-control child who disrespects you. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the program that tens of thousands of moms are now using to turn around their child's behavior. If you've heard about the Total Transformation and wondered if it will work for you, now you can try it for free. I'm willing to give away 1,000 programs today for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. We'll let you keep it for free. I know the total transformation works because I used these techniques with my own son and with troubled kids for over 30 years. Let me prove to you that it works by giving you the program free.
Call the number on your screen now to get the total transformation free.
To see this week's top on-demand videos, go to cbn.com.
Life on the wild side. Scott Hayes only has one reason for what he did one night when he was 20 years old. It wasn't because he was drunk. It wasn't because he was high on drugs. Scott says he did it because he was just trying to have a, quote, good time.
Anybody need anything?
Pastor Scott Hayes is well loved by the people of Newark, Ohio. But years ago, they didn't know Scott as a pastor. They knew him as a menace.
Some of these houses I used to come to and sell either weed or cocaine or meth or a combination of them.
For Scott, illegal activities started out as entertainment.
When I was 14 years old, I first started just drinking some alcohol, and I just did it a few times. And then it became an every Friday night thing. And then me and my buddy, we were taking flasks filled with liquor to school. Then we started smoking weed. That quickly progressed to LSD, prescription pills, heroin, and cocaine.
By the time Scott was 20 and joined the Air Force, he was a hardcore drug user, selling drugs to support his habit.
I would use drugs and sell drugs, but mainly just to people I knew that were in the Air Force.
One evening while on leave, Scott and his brother got drunk at a bar and got into a fight. They were both arrested and released on bond. Later that night, they came back to the police department, and that's where the real trouble started.
We had these large survival knives, kind of snuck up and took those big knives and cut the tires on the police cruisers. And we left and went to another policeman's house and threw a concrete block through his picture window. We went back to the Heath police station again, and we felt like we didn't do a good enough job, so we sliced the tires even on the personal cars that were parked in the parking lot.
As if that wasn't enough, they went on to the police sergeant's house.
I fired 4 shots through the house. It was very loud. Dogs were barking. I just kind of laughed. I almost felt like I was outside of my body and I was watching myself in every action I was doing. It sounds kind of weird, but I think I was just doing it to have a good time.
Scott and his brother were arrested and went to prison for 18 months.
We would kid with some of the other inmates and say we're here on the family plan, which wasn't a humorous place to be, but we were definitely making light of the situation.
When he got out of prison, Scott was discharged from the Air Force. He couldn't keep a job, so he went back to dealing drugs.
When I first started just selling drugs, it was just to support my habit, but it just became such quick, easy money, it becomes an addiction in itself. I was probably maybe 23 or 24 years old the first time I did meth, and that became my favorite, my drug of choice.
Over the next 7 years, Scott overdosed twice.
I had a lot of bouts with paranoia. You think somebody's out on the other side of the door, you're spending lots of hours pacing, you think people are after you. I had a couple of guns, several boxes of ammo. I was very delusional, and I became so upset or overwhelmed with it, I felt like I might as well just take my own life. I was in an unfinished basement, and I'd taken a dog chain and I tied it around my neck, and I stood up on a chair and I took the other end of the chain and I hung it on a pipe, and all I had to do was kick that chair out from under me.
Scott passed out before he could go through with it. And then one night while he was out drinking, he met Bernice, a waitress who started talking to him. She invited him to church.
God wasn't real to me. People that went to church were pretty much Bible-banging, weirdo kind of Jesus freak people. But I went there to impress her. I liked her. There was something different about her.
Scott continued seeing Bernice, but he also continued drinking and using drugs. He hid his addictions from her, and 3 weeks later, they got engaged. Still, Bernice worried about him.
He would be gone for 2 or 3 days at a time, and I didn't know where he was or what was going on or what he was doing, and so it was very scary.
Bernice's pastor told her that Scott had to be free of drugs at least a year before he would marry them. Scott loved Bernice, so he started the long process of overcoming his addictions. In time, he became a Christian.
I kind of was at my bottom, so to speak, at that time. I just didn't know, how do you deal with when you're feeling anxious? How do you deal with life on life's terms when things are going bad? How do you celebrate when things are going good, apart from, the learned behaviors of drinking and drugging? When I invited Christ into my heart to be my Lord and Savior, and then to really get deep in prayer and the Bible and being around other Christians and accountability and those things, what really started to help that process.
In 1999, when Scott had been drug-free for just over a year, he and Bernice married. Scott has since become an ordained minister and is now chaplain of the Licking County Jail, where he was once incarcerated.
God placed on my heart to go back and reach out to men that maybe experienced the same lifestyle and struggles that I had in my life. And so I wanted to be able to be the living vessel that God was to give them, to offer hope for them and for their lives.
Scott is also founder of Look Up Ministries, which provides weekly meals and a free dental clinic. They also host an alcohol-free sports bar and cafe. He is humbled by his past, but Scott wants more than anything to share the new life he has found in Christ with others.
Guys and women alike in the jail setting will say, well, Scott, how can you prove to me God is real? And I say, well, I really can't. But here's what sold me on it. I have a sense of peace when I go to bed, just like when I got up this morning. Doesn't mean I don't have hardship or struggle or a bad day or an argument with my wife. It just means I have a genuine sense of peace that I know only can come from the power of Christ.
What's grabbing you? Is it drugs? Is it despair? Have you been to prison? Are you locked into a bad marriage? Well, what's the deal? What's happening? Take it to the Lord in prayer. There was an old song that used to be sung in the churches. Oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. You see, He's almighty. God is almighty. And He can take care of your drug problem. He can take care of your alcohol. He can take care of your sex addiction. He can take care of the fact that you may have had an abortion. He can take care of a bad marriage. He can take care of anything. He's absolutely able. And right now, I want to give you a chance to turn it over to Him. Oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Pray these words. Lord, pray with me. Lord, I give it to you. I give you my pain. I give you my problems. I give you the stuff that I've done myself that's wrong. I give it all to you. And I say to you, Lord, please come into my heart. Live your life in me. And I will live for you, and I will serve you from this moment on. Thank you, Lord, that you've taken my burdens. Thank you, Lord, that you love me. Thank you for saving my soul. And for those who prayed that prayer, just begin to praise God. Just begin to live for the Lord. And I tell you what, I want to give you something. You just made a prayer, but that's the beginning. It's a long journey, and it's a fun journey. It's a wonderful journey, but what happens along the way? Well, 73 minutes of a CD, you can pop it into your CD player, and it'll explain what you've just done and what's happened to you. And I'll give this to you free if you just call us. 1-800-759-0700. It's a toll-free number. And we're here because we love you and God loves you. Go to the phones and call in. Anything else you can do, you need somebody to help you, pick up the phone. We're there for you. Christy?
Thank you, Pat. Well, still ahead, a scientist aims to end the faith versus science debate once and for all. Hear what he discovered and how it affects Christians later on today's 700 Club.
Something inside of me just told me I need to get checked out. The doctor said we found something and we need to get into surgery.
Beth Gomez had stage 3 colon cancer.
That's when we scheduled an appointment for a second opinion at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
To find out more about treatment options for complex and late-stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com. You'll be able to see our treatment results for many types of cancers and how they compare to national averages. You can also check for participating insurance plans. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, every resource, every one of us, everything we do every day is focused on you, our patient, your treatment, your healing, your survival.
You had a whole team. I wasn't just going to fight this battle. They were going to stand beside me and fight it.
Our physicians, clinicians, and nurses are highly experienced and dedicated. We use state-of-the-art technology and give you treatment options you may not even know exist.
Cancer makes you really appreciate what's important in your life.
Please call or go to cancercenter.com today. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
And welcome back to the 700 Club. A European court has banned stem cell research that kills a human embryo. The decision is a blow to researchers who say embryonic stem cells can help cure diseases. But a representative of the European People's Party says it forces scientists to use other, more proven methods.
They will now choose other ways to address the same problem. And I think that is also good for the patients, because we have already 70 diseases which we can cure with alternatives, with stem cells taken from the adult body and not destroying embryos.
You can go to cbnnews.com for more on this story, including reaction from the European Center for Law and Justice. Voters in Mississippi will soon decide if life begins at conception. A constitutional amendment known as the Personhood Initiative will be on the ballot in November. If approved, the amendment will change the state's constitution to say life begins when a human egg is fertilized. Mississippi already has some of the toughest abortion regulations in the country, and the state has only one abortion clinic. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Christy will be back with more of the 700 Club after this.
I'm just a regular girl.
After a long day, Michelle just likes to relax at home. Take it easy. Her favorite club helps her do that. Direct Buy Club. Michelle saves money at Direct Buy because with no hidden retail markup, Direct Buy members like Michelle always pay a low price on cool stuff for their home. Things like major appliances, furniture, lighting, flooring. Michelle likes a club that saves her money. And right now, you could win a Sports Illustrated Ultimate Game Room like this one.
Some clubs just feel right.
Take your best shot and log on now to si.com/game room for your chance to win the Sports Illustrated Ultimate Game Room.
John Mapes is 42, mortgage, married, 2 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. John can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $25 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll search the pick of insurers like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. John's wife, Carrie, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or visit SelectQuote.com.
Well, we all know that school is in session, but today, a 13-year-old boy in Indonesia is going to school for the first time in his life, thanks to CBN. Take a look.
Unlike most boys his age, 13-year-old Yusuf had actually wanted to go to school. But when his parents tried to enroll him in the first grade, the school refused to admit him. This is Yusuf's dad.
The school said that they were concerned because Yusuf couldn't speak clearly and wouldn't be able to learn to read.
Many mornings, Yusuf's mother finds her son staring out the window.
When I see my friend go to school, I feel sad because I can go to school like them.
My heart hurts so badly for him. I don't know how to describe my sadness. I wondered if his mouth would ever be fixed.
Orna's husband, Mehmed, works as a full-time housekeeper. He's resigned to the fact that he'll never have enough money to pay for his son's surgery. But then he heard about CBN.
I told my son, there's a group that will do free surgery for you. Do you want that? He said yes, because he wants to be like other kids and go to school.
A few weeks later, a plastic surgeon performed the delicate surgery to repair the cleft lip and palate. 3 weeks later, when we went back to visit, we found Yusuf smiling, and this month, Yusuf will no longer watch from the window, but will join all the other kids his age and go to school for the first time.
I'm so excited because I will now be able to start school. Thank you so much for changing my life.
I got to tell you, ever watch these stories and you just want to take those little babies and hug them and kiss them? I tell you what, this is one of those stories that as a mom, my heart goes out to that mother who sees the need in her child, but is unable to do anything because she doesn't have the finances. But check this out. Because of your love in your heart, you were able to meet the need, not just of that little boy, but of that entire family. Can I just ask you right now that if you are a 700 Club partner, first I want to say thank you, but if you're not a 700 Club partner, won't you consider becoming one? It's just 65 cents a day, $20 a month. And look at that little boy's life that you changed. You could change so many people's lives around the world. So we're encouraging you to do that. You can just call right now, 1-800-759-0700, or you can always log on to cbn.com as well to become a 700 Club partner and make a difference in a little boy's life, just like the story that you saw. When you do, real quick, I want to give you this. It's called Signs of the Times. Both Pat and Gordon put together this DVD. Really kind of talks about what's going on in the world today. It's insightful, and this would be great in your just your Christian walk. So there you have it. Call, log on to cbn.com. Pat, over to you.
Thanks. You know, our next guest, last time he was with us, is kind of like asking God, would you tell us how it was when you first created stuff? Hugh Ross, distinguished astronomer, and he's just written a book. I have never read a book like this about Job, talking about all the hidden treasures of the book of Job. And it's a pleasure to welcome back to the 700 Club an outstanding Christian, Hugh Ross. Thank you for being here.
Well, my pleasure.
Thank you. How come Job? What got you interested in writing about Job?
Well, I've always been fascinated by Job ever since I gave my life to Christ, just realizing it is the foundation for the rest of the Bible. I believe it's the oldest book in the Bible. It has the most content about science and creation. So it's always been a place I go to as a witnessing tool when I talk to people from a scientific perspective. Then I realized nobody's really written a book on Job from that perspective of science and creation. And especially what intrigued me is how Job actually deals with scientific discoveries that are happening right now. I mean, here's the oldest book in the Bible, the most up-to-date book in the Bible. Even talks about things like cosmic darkness and global warming. I was particularly fascinated by what it said about what the Bible calls the soulish animals, birds and mammals, and how God designed them to serve and please us. But Job brings out the fact that God designed them to teach us things about God. And as I thought about that,
soulish animals, you're not talking about human beings, you're talking about animals. That are,
well, when you look at Genesis 1, there are three separate origins of life.
All right.
For creation day 1, you got the origin of life that's purely physical.
All right.
You know, like bacteria, insects. And then you go into creation day 5, where it talks about soulish animals that are not just physical, but endowed by God with mind, will, and emotions, so that they can nurture one another, relate to one another. But primarily, God designed them to serve and please human beings, each in their own distinct way.
They can't worship God, though.
They can't, no. There's the third origin of life is human beings, the one species and only species that's body, soul, and spirit. And so as God designed these soulish animals to serve a higher species, namely us, he designed us to serve and please him.
you know, the PBS is making a big deal about crows now, about how smart crows are. So,
well, it's something Job actually talks about.
Does he? What does he say?
Well, I mean, here you got Darwin saying that the human properties of the mind naturally evolved from primates. Mm-hmm. But new research is showing us that ravens, for example, far surpass chimpanzees in intellectual capability.
Do they really?
They really do. Well, for example, ravens, without any human training, can take a tool to recover a different tool to get a food treat. And if you try to do that with a chimpanzee, you have to train him for a significant period of time before the chimpanzee will do that.
Incredible.
And,
well, back to the...
And clearly we're not descended from ravens.
Talk to me about this dark matter stuff. I mean, what as I understand, the universe is an exquisite balance, and it's got so much dark matter. And what is it? How do we know it's there?
Well, Job actually said it first.
All right.
I mean, you know, as a physicist, I was taught that darkness is the absence of light.
Yes.
But Job 38, verse 19 and 20, God says, do you know where darkness resides? Can you take me to its place? Mm-hmm. Making the point that darkness is a real substance, not just the absence of light. Well, today we know that the universe is predominantly composed of dark stuff. Dark energy, exotic dark matter, and ordinary dark matter. And if you put those three together, it makes up 99.73% of the entirety of the universe. And it actually has specific geographical locations. Each of those three different kinds of cosmic darkness has a different geographical location. And what really impressed me, I mean, if you were to ask me as a scientist, what's the most spectacular evidence for supernatural, superintelligent design, mm-hmm. it would be the fine-tuning and the quantities of the three different kinds of cosmic darkness, and secondarily would be the locations of those three kinds.
Where are they?
Where are they?
Yeah.
Well, dark energy, which is 73% of the universe, is evenly distributed over the space surface of the universe. I mean, all of reality is on the surface of the universe. And then exotic dark matter exists in giant halos around the large galaxies and galaxy clusters. And embedded within those halos of exotic matter are halos of ordinary matter. And so when you look at our galaxy, for example, you see the stars and stuff, but beyond that is a much larger halo of protons and neutrons that we can't see.
How do we know it's there?
Because of the gravitational influence.
Okay.
So we can actually see the gravity that this stuff is exerting.
In your book, and I don't want to overstate it, but you indicated, you said there was 1,000,000 trillion, is it planets, heavenly bodies?
50 billion trillion stars in the observable
50 billion
universe.
Trillion,
right.
50 billion trillion stars.
And it's got to be that big if you want human beings.
Come on, why?
Well, if the universe were any smaller than that, all you would get would be hydrogen and helium in the entire history of the universe, and you'd be lacking the elements essential for life. And if we're any bigger than that, then the universe would be nothing but elements heavier than iron. And again, you'd be missing the carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. The universe must be exactly the size that it is in order to get life, and it particularly fine-tuned if you want humans.
In other words, just for us.
All this is just for us, exactly.
This gigantic thing.
Right.
50 million trillion.
50 billion trillion.
50 billion trillion.
Right.
Billion trillion.
Right.
That's almost like the federal budget. Come on. Goodness gracious. And we had to have all those things just to have us.
Right. And keep in mind that 50 billion trillion, that's only 1% of the total stuff of the universe. So 50 billion trillion times 100 is what you need in order to have life in this universe.
And if the Big Bang took place 14 billion years ago or whatever, God had to know that. He had to estimate all those equations. That takes a mentality beyond anything we could even possibly conceive of.
Yes, something I talk about in my books is how if we were placed here any earlier than 14 billion years after the cosmic creation event, light from that cosmic creation event would not have time to travel on the surface of the universe and reach our telescopes. We astronomers would never be able to witness God creating the universe. And if we're any older than that, if God put us here any later, then dark energy would be expanding the universe at greater than the velocity of light, which means once again we would not be able to see that. We're living at the only time we can see the whole story.
Well, is the universe expanding?
Yes.
They just gave more rapidly than they thought.
Because of dark energy, the universe expands more and more rapidly as time goes on. And as we look at the farthest reaches of the universe, going back to the very moment of creation, we see that that material is moving away from us at barely under the velocity of light, which means in the future it'll be going faster than the velocity of light and therefore will no longer be visible to us.
Okay.
So we're living at the one time and the one place we get to see the entire story of creation. If we were anywhere else in the universe, we wouldn't be able to see the whole story.
What do you see? Because the Bible talks about it, but I mean, elements with fervent heat. The guy that just got the Nobel Prize was talking about ice that is going to turn cold, but the Bible says it's going to turn hot. What do you see?
Well, there are Big Bang creation models that would actually predict the universe would end literally the way you see they're described in Isaiah and Revelation and Peter, that the entire space-time fabric would disappear into a singularity, there'd be a great heat, and the universe would disappear. Keep in mind, God told us He created this universe as a tool to bring about the end of all evil and suffering. And once evil and suffering is conquered and removed, the universe will have fulfilled its purpose. God will take it out of existence and replace it with a brand new one.
Disappear into a singularity.
Right.
Which is, what is it, like a great vortex? It just sucks everything out?
Right. Well, I mean, there's something called the ekpyrotic Big Bang creation model, which states that you have the universe as a 10-dimensional flat sheet. But if you go far beyond where we can see, it could possibly fold in on itself and become a U, and the two surfaces are close enough together that over the course of billions of years, a space-time fluctuation, the top sheet can make contact with the bottom sheet, and if that were to happen, the whole thing would disappear.
And that's really what the Bible says. He's going to make a new heaven, a new earth.
Well, I'm not saying that that verse has to be interpreted literally. Some say it's a metaphorical passage, but the Bible is clear that the moment evil is conquered and removed, God will replace His universe with a new creation with radically different physics. It's something I talk about in my book, Why the Universe is the Way It Is.
Unbelievable.
So,
Hugh Ross, the kind of guy, I wish we had about 10 hours to talk about this because it is fascinating. But this is hidden treasure in the book of Job. Amazing things that are here. I appreciate Hugh Ross being with us. You can get this book where?
It's at any bookstore. You can get it online. You can get it from us at Reasons to Believe.
Outstanding, outstanding research, gentlemen. It's just wonderful to have him with us, and we're honored. Well, tomorrow, a woman tells us how she lost 100 pounds and won the Biggest Loser on NBC. We leave you today with these words from Jeremiah. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow.
She had IVs in her head. She had IVs in her arms.
A newborn is given 1 hour to live.
The body is clinically considered dead.
As her mom takes a turn for the worse.
I couldn't even get up and move.
How this family got a double miracle.
I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing what you're doing.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Here at CBN, we see incredible things happen when we stand together. That's why we want to thank the thousands of you who recently pledged to join the 700 Club. Your monthly gift makes it possible to bring crucial help to people who need it most. Each day, you have a part in healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and broadcasting the gospel across America and around the world. You've brought hope and help to those in desperate need and changed their lives forever.
Just like you did for Yanan. No matter how hard her parents tried, they couldn't raise the money for the life-saving operation she needed. That's when you provided the heart surgery that saved Yanan's life. You ended her pain and her parents' despair, giving them all a bright future.
So please watch for this mailing and send in your pledge. This year, millions will experience the love and saving power of Jesus Christ only because you were there.